Welcome to Optimize 25, the art of bidding. My name is Micheál McGrath. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Visible Thread, and I'm so thankful to everyone who's decided to join us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, no matter where in the world you've joined us. We're very, very thankful. The reception that we have gotten for this event has been really overwhelming. We've had over 1,000 global registrants from all parts of the world, all different industries, different roles in the bidding sector, from proposals to capture to BD to contracts. It's been a really amazing reception that we've gotten. So thank you very much. Just a little bit about the agenda. So the agenda is available on the landing page. It's also available in the console. So if you at any point throughout today, you can go to the console, you can click the agenda, and you can go and see the agenda for today and tomorrow. And all the live links are available there, and we'll be adding the recordings as we go. Today's content, we'll be talking about winning cultures, we'll be talking about proposal writing, opportunity assessment, and we'll be talking about technology and AI. So at any point, feel free to go back to the Optimize page and get involved in the content there. And we'll be adding all the links to the on-demand sessions from there on. Just in case you're not aware, this event is hosted by Visible Thread. We have some amazing new updates that we are rolling out in the next couple of months. Visible Thread is launching our full RFP lifecycle platform, and it's something our customers are really excited about. We believe that our mix of technology and our 15 years in the industry really allows us to provide a solution that really makes a difference and is a standout in this industry. So you're going to see a lot of sneak previews of our new platform, how we apply to the industry throughout the next 2 days. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask. There is 3 main pillars when it comes to Visible Thread. So if you're not aware of us, if you haven't seen us before, or you're excited to see the new platform, the 3 pillars that we're aligning to are a full life cycle RFP intelligence. So that's our first pillar. We're doing everything from sales to contract. We're trying to apply as much efficiency and technology to different stages of the proposal as possible. So everywhere from writing to scoring to comparing to compliance to winning, we feel like we're doing something for different roles and different teams within different organizations. AI is obviously something that's a huge topic in the industry, and it's taken over many industries across the world, and it's a topic in all headlines. We find that we've applied AI into the right use cases. We are grounding in evidence. So if you're creating content with AI, you can see where it's sourced. If it's giving you insights, it's telling you exactly where those insights are coming from. We feel like we're applying AI into the proposal industry where it's getting its most powerful results. And finally, our final pillar and our connection with Visible Thread is security without compromise. We are very proud of what we're doing in Visible Thread. We're working with major primes in the UK, Australia, Europe. We're working with 9 of the top 11 government contractors in the States. We are very proud of how we deploy and how secure we are and how stable our platforms tend to be in multiple different deployments. If you'd like to hear anything about Visible Thread or learn a little bit more about our new updates, we have a session tomorrow at noon with our founder, where he's going to talk, Fergal McGovern's going to talk about our roadmap and where we're going from a product perspective. We also have a LinkedIn Live series every Thursday on LinkedIn Live. The link for that is in the console below, and feel free to book a call with us at any time. Now, back to Optimize and back to the event. I just wanted to highlight that everything is going to be shared and available on demand afterwards. Feel free to share with your colleagues and peers. Everything will be free and open access. Feel free to get involved. So we have a Q&A box on every single session today. So today and tomorrow. So feel free to ask questions, even in this session with me and Trish. Feel free to ask questions throughout and we'll tackle them at the end. We have an attendee chat. So if you'd like to get involved with the other 1,000 attendees that are involved, if you'd like to let us know where you're coming from, feel free to post in that chat. I'm coming from Cork in Ireland. hence the accent. I'll try and keep that under control for the next couple of sessions. But if you want to share your LinkedIn profiles or any information there, feel free to do so. And finally, at every session, we're looking for feedback. We want this to be enjoyable but beneficial to you. We want to make sure that we're answering the questions that you've come here for. And if you would mind, before every session ends, if you want to give us a feedback or a score, we'd be more welcome. That's available on screen. So Trish, how did I do? Did I do okay?
You did awesome.
I did my best. I did the best I possibly can. There's a lot to go through these opening virtual conferences, or there's a lot to go through and a lot of different functionality and everything to go through. But we're very, very happy to open today's session with Patricia Fielson. Trish spoke recently at one of our customer forums, and it was just an incredible session. She has over 20 years of experience in bids and proposals, mainly in defense and aerospace spaces, and she brings a wealth of knowledge in terms of successful teams, winning culture, but also technology as well. And it's a perfect start for us today. And Trish, we're very happy to have you, and thank you for your time. We're very appreciative.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mihal, and good morning, afternoon, and evening to all of you, depending on where you are in the world. As Mihal said, I am Tricia Fieldson, and I'm going to be talking a little bit today about our journey that I recently took with an aerospace company through kind of a tool selection, and then how we are thinking about applying AI. I am joining you from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So for those of you that may be in the global market space, so that is basically in the middle of the country, somewhere near Chicago. And I am very pleased to say that it is a beautiful fall day here. So very sunny, and the leaves are falling. So it is a great day to kind of kick off with this. As Mihal mentioned, so I have been very fortunate to have found my passion as it relates to capture work as well as proposal work. I do have over 30 years of experience working proposals, working capture management. 18 of those years has been in aerospace, both on the commercial OEM side, on the international side, as well as working with US government and DoD. Prior to that, I did also work in proposals in the higher education consulting arena. And I tell you what I have really kind of come to appreciate through my experience is that even though acquisition types may differ, industries differ, the one true constant I think that links all of us together is that really when we think about proposals, when we think about developing capture strategies, and when we think about winning business, it all really kind of comes down to customers, what they are looking for, and then how do we best kind of weave that story and articulate kind of our value proposition to get them to kind of understand how we can help them solve a problem. So I just wanted to start off with that because, again, while all of us might be coming at this from a different industry or a different acquisition type, we are really all truly in this together. I do want to kind of start off by just sharing that, you know, over the past 30 years, I have kind of seen a lot of changes in what we do in terms of how we develop capture strategy and how we produce proposals. And I realize that I may be aging myself here a little bit, but I recall that when I first started in this industry, that there was a lot of focus on, you know, doing hard copy submittals, where they were requiring volumes and volumes of responses and answers. In fact, I even remember having to type out on a typewriter forms in order to meet some key requirements. I'm also very well versed with doing the physical drop-offs of proposals. And so as I kind of reflect back as to how much has changed since I started, while we have made some advances, I have been astounded with how quickly things are changing with some of these new technologies as well as with AI. While I feel like that, prior to AI, advances were made, it just seems like that things are going extremely fast, and AI is really kind of pushing our industry forward at what feels like Mach 10. So what I'm going to do over the next 45 minutes is just kind of share my journey with you as to how I've kind of seen some of these changes impact us, as well as kind of share some lessons learned that I have gained through that. And then I'm going to pivot during this conversation about midway through, and then really kind of focus on AI. I want to be very clear here. I am by no means a master expert at AI. However, I do have some insights that I'm hopeful will be helpful as we kind of go through this. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So about a year and a half ago was kind of the start of our journey. And prior to this time, I was always very fortunate in that I had control over our technology, as well as kind of making decisions about how we applied that to proposal development or to capture management. And typically how this would go is I would assess the organization, I would take a look at our process, I would kind of assess and just see how things were flowing. Were we efficient? Were there better ways of doing things? And at that time then, I would go out to industry and I identify tools, identify technologies that would help us kind of incrementally streamline how well we were doing things. And this worked great. And one of the reasons why this worked great is because I was in an environment where leaders were listening to my recommendations. I was able to build out business cases and then bring in the tools and technologies that we needed. All of this changed, and it felt like overnight, but all of this changed about a year and a half ago. And what had happened, and by the way, I am curious if this has impacted you as well, but people started talking about AI, and people started to get really excited about this. And because of this, people outside of our capture center started taking a look at technology, started taking a look at how we could do things more efficiently. And I will never forget this day, but about a year and a half ago, our marketing and newly created tools team came to me and said to me, Trish, you have a problem. So this is Houston, you have a problem. And I said, I do. And they said, yes. They said, technology is advancing quickly, and we have some concerns with how you were doing proposals, with how capture is being done. And so I was stunned. And so I said, well, tell me more kind of about these concerns. And basically what they told me was, you know what? You all are not efficient enough. You have too many tools. They're not integrated. You have too many touch points in your pursuit to order capture process. Not enough people are using your tools. And the net sum of that is, technology is advancing. the corporation and industry within our company are really kind of driving towards efficiency. You have a problem, and we are going to help you. And for someone who has been used to kind of having 100% control over my organization, over my technology, over how we did proposals, this was kind of a stunning moment for me. So what I did was I took a step back, and I think that we can all agree, all of us are constantly looking for ways to do things better, to function more efficiently, and to make the proposal development process easier. So what I did was I took a step back and I said, okay, I hear what you're saying. I need more data, and tell me more. And so what ended up happening was they had gone out to our proposal managers, to our stakeholders, and basically asked them about challenges, asked them about what was working, what wasn't working. And so they brought their research to me. And based off of that, that was kind of our starting point of our journey. So we took a look, and I did pull my team together, but then we took a look at what was happening. We took a look at who was using tools. We took a look at kind of what those key challenges were. And there were some pretty big surprises for me. So the first one was that the tools that we had currently invested in, trained our teams on, what I found was that not everybody was using them, which was a pretty big shock. The second thing that I learned is that people weren't using them consistently. And as a result of inconsistent tool usage, inconsistent application of those, a lot of challenges were brought up to our marketing and tools team to say we have a challenge within our pursuit to order capture process. And as we kind of took a deeper dive, what I learned is that for a lot of those, the tools that we actually did have could have fulfilled some of those problems or challenges. But you know what? A challenge is a challenge, and a problem is a problem. So we took all of that data back, and then basically how we kind of approached this edict of we need to kind of move to a more integrated tool set. We need to move towards doing things differently, was we pulled our team together. We took a look at the challenges, and then as a team, we identified what were our most important requirements. Said more simply, what is the key problem that we need technology and or AI to help us solve? And once we kind of pulled all of that together, we prioritized those to 5 separate things. And so for those, so for our 5 key most important requirements, we decided that this was going to be our baseline for identifying and selecting new tools. Once we had this, and by the way, guys, I'm going to kind of very quickly kind of go through our journey process, because really where I want to focus on are the lessons learned, because I think that is where the most benefit to everybody is going to come from. So once we kind of identified our focus and what needed to be solved, then we ended up developing and issuing an RFP. And we kind of spread this out to multiple vendors. Some were recommended by our tools and marketing group. Some were the ones that we recommended. And so basically we sent that out. And then we were able to down select to a top 2 or 3. And then we requested vendor demos. And I'm not sure if any of you all have recently had a vendor demo, but let me just tell you, it was amazing. I mean, the demos were terrific. You would ask them a question, they would come back and say, you know what, we can do that, we can integrate here. And it was such a glorious story of how amazing all of this new tools and technology were. So we were pretty excited. But then what ended up happening is as all of these new capabilities were presented to us, as they were demonstrated, we started to see scope creep. So we started to see then our tools and marketing group saying, hey, you know what? You guys really need to have these 5 capabilities, plus you also need to have these. And so what ended up happening was we found that partway through this process, we had to go back to our original problem being solved and reaffirm what our most important requirements were. And that kind of helped us kind of bind our scope and really kind of give us focus. So if anybody here is kind of going through this right now, one of the things that I do strongly encourage you to do is stay true to the problem you are trying to solve, as well as what your most important requirements are, and make sure you focus on getting to those first. So once we had these incredible demos, we started thinking a little bit more critically because a lot of the things that were being recommended to us by internal stakeholders or by these companies were not really experts in our field. And I think that as everybody on the phone call can probably appreciate, failure is never an option when developing a proposal. At the end of the day, at least on our team, our proposal folks are responsible for compliance. And so if anything kind of deviates from that, if the product that goes out isn't where it needs to be, and if it isn't compliant, my folks are on the hook for that. So really, from our standpoint, failure is not an option. So to select an incorrect tool was just kind of a non-starter. So in order to offset this risk, we at the time had a fabulous tools person, and she basically took the leadership role on this and basically started to set up a proof of concept. So for this proof of concept, our goal here was to take our top 2 options and actually take it through and see if what they said would actually work well within our environment. So this test to verify was extremely important. And we were kind of getting a lot of pressure from leaders. We were getting pressure from others just to trust and, you know, just to go ahead and trust. But we really said, no, we need to test everything and verify. As part of this testing and verification, we also took a pretty deep look at our internal environment. As an aerospace company, IP right, data privacy, as well as cybersecurity are pretty important to us. So we also started taking a look at environmental fit. So for all of these big, fabulous platforms, could we really execute within our environment without violating any of our corporate policies or any of our restrictions? And that actually took a lot of time as well. And then the final thing that we also looked at was for each one of these tool options, what was the associated impact, not only in terms of cost, but in terms of workflow. So, so again, what you were seeing on the screen is kind of our pathway that we use going forward. So I'm going to cut to the end of the chase here. So the overall outcome was we ended up not going with any of the vendors that were recommended to us, or the ones that we had down selected and really kind of done our proof of concept. So what we found was that these huge integrated platforms were expensive. And by the way, that wasn't really kind of a mitigating factor for us, but it wasn't something that we could invest in immediately and make successful. The second reason why we ended up not going with a large one-size-fits-all platform was the impact ratio was not acceptable for our environment. So what we found is while there were a lot of promises of we can shred requirements, we can produce content, we can integrate AI very seamlessly, we did find through testing that while they could do it up to a certain extent, the efficiencies, we would have lost a lot in terms of time as well as accuracy. So for us, that was a no-go. We also found that that kind of implementing some of these larger integrated platforms would have had too large of an impact on our other stakeholder or functional areas. For us, we rely heavily on folks from program management, from engineering, from technical, from legal, from global trade, et cetera. And so to implement one of these large platforms would have caused kind of a rework across the corporation. And so for us at this point in time, that really kind of didn't make sense. And then as I also kind of mentioned earlier, the technology that we were evaluating was also misaligned with kind of our internal expectations. So as I mentioned earlier, IP data and cybersecurity, extremely important, as well as kind of not putting our proprietary information out to the wider area also was not an option. So a lot of these really great capabilities that we were, told about and thought were really great, those would not be an option for us within our internal environment. So now I want to be very clear about this. That is not to say that in the future, something like this wouldn't make sense. But for kind of a fast turn, get rid of what we are using now and implement something larger and more integrated, it just didn't make sense. This whole journey took us about 9 months. And so once we have kind of concluded that we were going to stay with what we currently had, and I see that Andrew did have a question out there. So what we were using at the time, and keep in mind that kind of across Collins Aerospace, we have different capture centers with different acquisition types. So just kind of on a very broad basis. So we were using Upland Covidian. We were using Visible Thread Writer, looking at Visible Thread Docs, looking at Visible Thread Writer. We were also using Grammarly as well as some other tools. So we had kind of taken a modular approach, as well as kind of SharePoint and some of those other tools. And so what we found here is that we needed to kind of have, I think, a plan to kind of grow with technology in order to continue to serve our stakeholders while not giving up anything. So accuracy, too important, as we started to build along and advance with technology and AI. So after this 9-month journey, and by the way, this took a lot of time. It took a lot of investment in resources, but I certainly learned a lot. And so I wanted to kind of share some of these, some of my biggest lessons learned. And some of you may have already kind of gone through this, or some of you may have not experienced this yet. But what I want to share with you is that my #1 lesson learned is that I missed the writing on the wall. I had assumed that things would continue along as they had for the past 20 to 30 years, where proposals and capture are kind of in their own little bubble, and we kind of get to decide what is best for us. I did not read the room. And with the advancement, I think, of AI as well as technology, people are excited. And you don't have to look very deeply in the news to kind of read all of the articles to see that excitement. AI is going to change how things are done. AI is going to change efficiency. AI is going to enable us to do more with less. And so I did not progress with that excitement. And so if I could go back and tell myself one thing 1.5 years ago, I would say know the environment, be proactive. If, you know, with these tools and technologies, I should have been reaching out to stakeholders. I should have been having an understanding of what the company was looking for, and how folks were thinking about technology advancement and capabilities. So that is my biggest lesson learned. My second lesson learned is that I was not proactive enough with having a clear understanding as to how our team of proposal managers were actually using the tools we had. Had I been more proactive with that, we could have addressed a lot of the challenges that were perceived, and I could have put together a training plan. I could have had a proactive advancement of helping everybody kind of work together more consistently. And then we could have also adjusted some of our process changes or challenges. And by doing that, then when leaders and others came to us and said, hey, we see opportunity here, we could have been in a better position to really kind of laser focus in on what our true gaps were. So if I could go back and count and coach myself, that would have been my #2 thing. The third lesson that I learned is with our vendors that we were currently using, I didn't have a clear line of sight into what their technical roadmap was. So when we started this journey of evaluating these large platforms, there was a lot of back and forth between us and our vendors to say, so where are you going with things? How are you doing things? And having that information, I think would have gone a long way towards being more strategic in terms of vision, of knowing what tools and then what capabilities to roll out when, as well as what to kind of communicate upward as well as outward as to how we are proactively going about being more effective and doing a better job with proposals. Fourth lesson learned is to identify and prioritize needs up front. So if you were taking a look at tools, know what those are, bind those in early and stick to them, because it is very easy to kind of get distracted once you start taking a look at these demos. Fifth lesson learned is know your company's policies. What are they willing to do? What you are looking at, what is within policy, and then what is not going to be possible. I think that we may have wasted some time really kind of going down some rabbit holes talking about how cool it would be if we could, deploy AI one way, or combine information from different databases another way, only to find out 2 to 3 months down the line that there was no way Collins Aerospace was going to allow us to do that. So at the start of this, just be very cognizant of where your company stands. Number 6 is my absolute favorite. So again, never trust. I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend test and verify. So insist of conducting kind of the proof of concept. Make sure that what you are looking at is going to work for you. It's going to work within your environment. And then it is going to deliver those results you need up front. And then lesson learned number 7, take time to assess the impact and investment. I feel like that when all of us are kind of taking a look at new tools and technology, that it's very easy to kind of take a look at the investment and say, yeah, that's in budget, awesome, or I can build a business case for that and get that, kind of brought onto where proposal centers are. But you really need to spend a lot of time taking a look at the impact, because it is very easy to think, well, we can easily integrate that in with Microsoft Dynamics or in with Salesforce. That's not a problem. But then once you start to get into it, it typically takes longer, which will then kind of impact your ability to launch. So again, take that seriously, and invest in time with that on upfront. And then finally, and this one again is a really big lesson learned for me. I think that as AI is coming on board, we all need to be open to change and to evolution. And I'm sure that there are many of you on this call that are on kind of that forefront. But what I have found as I kind of take a look back is that I could have been more aggressive with this. I should have been taking a look at how AI was changing things, how these new tools are changing things. And I should have been more open to it and being more open to that evolution. So anyway, so those are kind of my key lessons learned. How if I had a remote control and could rewind about two years ago, these are the things that I would have done differently. And then I think that would have maybe saved some time and really kind of helped us progress forward, as well as kind of partner better. Okay, so I know that on the phone that we probably have a lot of really experienced people, and you all are very aware of the pursuit environment. And I don't care if you were looking at this from 20 years ago or looking at this now, people are looking for basically the same thing. So pursuit teams and input providers want an easy button. They want to produce the best product as quickly as possible, and they want to win. So that hasn't changed. If we take a look at our leaders, they want higher quality proposals with less investment. So with less bids and proposal spends, less time invested, because then that kind of supports efficiency. And then if we look at this from our customer standpoint, they want concise, accurate information faster. So the pursuit environment really hasn't changed, but as AI is kind of having an impact on what we do, there is, I think, a higher focus on these things, and there is a higher expectation that all of us can deliver this faster, cheaper, and better. And so the good news coming out of this is that people are excited. And because of that, I think that there is going to be a laser focus, and I'm sure a lot of you have already started seeing this, into how do we use AI to do pursuits and proposals better. And it's interesting. So as I kind of reflect on this, there are so many amazing opportunities where AI can help us develop better capture strategies, help us develop and create better proposals. And so I'm not going to go through this chart line by line, but let me just kind of clear it here. So at the top are kind of the phases of the pursuit to order capture cycle. Right underneath there, we have typical customer milestones. Now, for those of you who aren't in aerospace, so there might be, so these may be called different things. So just kind of think about this as things that your customers provide to you, and you kind of have to go through the education process. So they may have customer meetings, there might be RFIs, there might be industry days. So just kind of think of those as customer-owned milestones. And then we do have decision gates, and the formality of this probably just kind of depends on your company. But these are basically, do we bid or do we not bid? And then underneath that, color reviews or workshops. So these are those internal things that we do to ensure that what we are producing is high quality and is meeting our customers' requirements while kind of keeping within bounds of what our company thinks is appropriate. And then down on the bottom, I have listed out some areas and things in which AI can probably help us do a better job faster. And I am not going to go through and read all of these, but as Mihal said, these slides will be made available. But I am just going to touch on just a couple within each one of these areas. So the first is AI can be used to kind of help identify opportunities that are out there, and it can also be used to kind of help qualify those. So that is huge. So that is going to reduce the amount of time there. From a capture standpoint, there is a tremendous opportunity to do a lot of competitive information gathering, to go out and automate what is being funded and what isn't. So tremendous opportunity there as well. On the proposal side of the house, there is an opportunity to streamline our current processes. So maybe take away some of those manual tasks and automate those. There is also an opportunity to go through and do content development and editing. So kind of making the really labor-intensive things go faster. And then on a post-submittal side of the house, tremendous opportunity to use AI to really maybe kind of shore up and analyze some of those lessons learned, which could then maybe help out in future proposals. So the key takeaway here is AI is here, tremendous opportunity to do a lot of really great, amazing things. Now, that being said, and despite all of this amazing potential, we are not at a 100% perfect. Again, you don't have to go very far to really kind of see where maybe AI is kind of falling short. And so I want to walk you guys through a couple of examples of some of the maybe less than positive things about AI. So this first one is about a lawsuit. And what ended up happening was these lawyers used AI to write some of their legal writings for a lawsuit. And unfortunately, what ended up happening was, while AI did a great job kind of creating a very confident and well put together case, the briefs were actually error strewn, and I think that there were something like 30 instances where there were defective citations, misquotes, and references to cases that didn't even exist. So again, knowing your data, knowing where that came from, and verifying it, test to verify, is very critical. All right, so these next two or three are kind of fun. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so this one says, how many seconds are there in 1 year? And then AI came back and said, well, there's 12. January 2nd, February 2nd, March 2nd. Okay, so let me just ask everybody here a question. Are these accurate? Well, the answer is accurate, but is it correct? And the answer there is no, because again, kind of missing some context there. So let's go ahead and take a look at this next one. So this next one is talking about cheese sliding off pizza, and what can you do to prevent that from happening? And so if you take a look at what is circled in red here, they are recommending an 1/8 cup of non-toxic glue added to the sauce would probably prevent that cheese from sliding off. And so again, is this incorrect? Well, maybe not, because adding that glue would prevent the cheese from sliding off the pizza. But from a context standpoint, it misses the mark. And then this final example that I'm going to share is, somebody asked, how many rocks shall I eat? And so what AI came back is, it had a very thoughtful response and recommended 1 small rock per day. And what is interesting about this is that AI went out to all of the public sources, and upon further investigation, what they ended up finding here is that 1 small rock recommendation came from a news source called The Onion. And for those of you out there might be familiar with it, so that's a satirical site, and probably shouldn't be used as part of this question. So the overall point here is that AI is good at answering questions, but we need to be very careful about context. And I know that so I think that the next thing that folks need to be really kind of aware of, and I have started seeing some of these examples enter into kind of our proposal realm. And I know that I do need to kind of pick things up, but I will go ahead and just very quickly highlight these 2 examples. So for the first example, and this truly did happen. So there was a time recently when somebody came to me and said, Trish, we need to respond to an RFI. This is a must-win. This is critical. And so what we need to do is, we're not really going to be compliant with it, but we need to give the customer a sense that we are introducing a new way of looking at things. So I said, okay, so how much time do we have to respond? And he said 2 weeks. And what ended up happening was we had actually gotten this 8 weeks ago, and they had sat on it for 6 weeks. Sure that that's never happened to any of you out there. And so I said to him, okay, so we only have 2 weeks. And I said, you know, the first thing that we need to do is we need to get together with the customer facing people to understand the customer. We need to take a look at the competitors. We need to kind of take a look at what we have to offer. Then we need to kind of come up with a strategy, and then we can kind of baseline this and send out a response. And the response that I got was, no, Trish, we don't have time for that. What we need to do is to apply AI and have it create artifacts and lean into it, and this can probably be done in 2 days. And so, ridiculous, but I did want to bring this up because this is a very critical point, and I really need for you guys to think about this. People have a very different impression as to what AI is, what the value it brings, and so when they come to you in a proposal environment or in a capture environment, you need to have a clear understanding of how they are thinking about AI, and then helping them bring them back to reality as to what is possible and where efficiencies can be held. But at the end of the day, you cannot lose track of the contextual importance of including people. So just kind of keep that in mind. Second fast, easy trap. And again, I don't know if all of you are responsible for responding to all of the proposals that come through your proposal centers. We don't respond to everything. But what ended up happening here is that some teams are responsible for responding on their own. And so we started running into situations where rogue teams would go and respond to proposals, respond to questionnaires just using AI. They didn't validate sources, didn't validate kind of where that information was coming from. And that's all I'm going to say is that did not turn out well. So things to kind of think about as you were looking at AI. So again, tremendous potential, and I don't want to lose that message, but there are inherent risks. So hallucinations. So when you use AI, there might be risk of non-existent references or untraceable facts. And in our line of business, that is a hard stop. So we need to be validating every single place where information comes from. AI can provide lots of brand new text, but it may be generic and unpersuasive, and it can probably lack context. So as we kind of saw in those earlier examples, so lack strategic insight and customer connection. So be aware of that as you are moving forward. Risk of plagiarism. You don't know where they are pulling that information from, and what they might be recommending could be plagiarizing from someone else, which could land folks into a lot of trouble. Risk of non-compliance due to a lack of contextual understanding. So it may believe that is helping you develop or provide data, research, but it doesn't have that contextual understanding. So that's kind of where the human factor comes in. And then just keep in mind, and this is one thing I think where people are super excited, but I think that we as proposal and capture professionals need to keep pushing. Faster does not necessarily mean better. What is better? Winning is better. So the fastest path to get there may or may not get us there. Okay, so So then how do you get the most out of AI? And again, I think that I have touched on a lot of these concepts. But from a mindset, I think that it is helpful for us to take a look and look at AI as an assistant, something that is going to help us streamline things, make things better, but it is not a replacement for people. It is not a replacement for critical thought. And it is not a replacement for proposal development. It is there to assist. And what I would recommend here is really kind of focus on educating and communicating your stakeholders on this as you move forward. Second thing, fact check consistently. And again, we've already kind of touched on this several times, but it is critical that you absolutely know where the information is coming from. The data points, the sources, all of that. And by the way, if any of you are out there writing prompts right now for AI, I think that it's pretty easy to adjust some of those prompts to have it list out sources, as well as kind of how relevant and recent that data is. Third point is to consider to use and build with your own data. So if in fact you all are using AI and kind of going out to the universe to kind of pull things in, if in fact you do have an option, I would look at maybe training your AI models on internal content that has already been approved, validated, and fact-checked. So maybe start there, and then that will reduce risk. Emphasize content tailoring. So again, I know that a lot of our input providers, want the easy button. They want, to go back to their day jobs. But as you are moving forward and educating your pursuit teams on AI, continue to emphasize how critical that human touch is and how they need to be tailoring this down towards what the customer is looking for. And again, that kind of goes back to AI is an assistant, it's not a replacement. And then finally there, continue to follow a robust review process. I think now more than ever, it is critical to have a human eye, a subject matter expert, or kind of having your non-advocate reviewers take a look at what you are putting out for proposals. Again, because I think that people are going to want to be working on things faster. But again, we need to kind of hold true to what works kind of within our pursuit to order capture process. And this is my final slide. I'm sure that Mihal is probably having a heart attack here. So let me just highlight, let me just highlight two things. For those of you who have not really embraced AI yet, or you've thought about it, but really don't have a plan, let me just tell you, AI is here, it is real, and you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan to have it assist. You need to have a plan long-term strategically. Embrace it as something that is going to help you advance, but don't think of it as a replacement. It is not there yet. And then I think that the very last point that I will say here is just be sure to balance automation and AI with human expertise. We are not being replaced. AI is not replacing human critical thought, context. So have a plan on how to marry those things together and then progress from there. And Mihal, I apologize. I have gone way over. My apologies.
You did. You know, need to apologize for it. That was excellent. That was really, really good. There's so much value in that for everyone in the audience, and I hope people do enjoy it. Before I just move to a few questions, Trish, I'd ask everyone if they're willing to, there's a survey on screen, if they're willing to give us a little bit of feedback on the session, or if you have any other questions for Trish, we'll loop that afterwards. We can go out to Trish and get her thoughts on a few questions and come back to you all. But Trish, one question that kind of came up, it's kind of, I'm tying a few things together, but in terms of the test and verify, if you are in a sales cycle, if you are looking for tools right now, do you have any tips that you would give the audience for verify? Because I agree with you, anyone can make a demo look well. Like from a technology perspective, we know that, but like from an actual trial perspective, do you have tips for the audience?
Yeah, so what we found is that for our vendors is that they did give us licenses or a sandbox to play with. And so we took that opportunity and then we ran through actual use cases and things that we would typically do to verify that what they were saying worked within our environment. And so that was incredibly helpful. I know that sometimes vendors will give you examples, and typically those examples work beautifully, but you really need to kind of test what you are doing, how you are doing your work with that tool in your environment. So I would push hard to have that done.
Excellent. And Trish, you spoke about your evaluation of tools. Is there a time frame that's kind of obvious there? Like how long was that period where you were asked to invest in AI or invest in technology? And
yeah, so and by the way, I'll kind of share this with you guys. So one of my flaws is that I think that everything can be done in like a week or two. I will tell you that this whole process, I think, took about 9 months, which is very long. So from start to finish. What I would say is maybe to try and target, I don't know, three months to really kind of do a good job with that. Now, maybe some of you on the call have figured out an easier way to kind of streamline that. And so I would be interested in knowing that. But for us, it took 9 months. Had I done a better job up front, I think that we probably could have gotten it down to maybe, I don't know, be between 3 to 6. But again, we were also looking at huge integrated platforms, so not just singular tools.
of course, yeah, and I think we've experienced this a lot in recent, especially in recent years with AI and the jump in the amount of vendors in the space. We encourage everyone to do a trial. Absolutely, whether it's working with an AE or an account executive or a CSM, use the platform. Like from a technology perspective, I agree with Trish and say we can make a demo look fantastic, but until you go in and actually use the platform, you'll learn a lot from there.
And Mihal, you bring up a really good point. I think that I recently saw a stat somewhere. I think that there are like new AI software vendors, I think even related to proposals, that have just kind of popped up over the past 6 to 9 months, and it's something like 170. So guys, these vendors are popping up all over the place. So what I would say there is, again, you really need to kind of take a look at their true capabilities and make sure, again, they can provide the data accuracy, as well as kind of hitting all of your requirements. But kind of seeing that 170 vendors in the past 6 months really kind of made me a little bit nervous.
Yeah, and I think it's across every industry. Like there's like for sure, but it does make the space a little bit more confusing if you are evaluating software. Trish, I just want to thank you. What a fabulous presentation. I can see in the chat already that it was very reflective and it's honest, and I think you're pulling from some reality really in terms of what you've experienced in your roles in the past. So I thank you so much, and thank you for your time.
Sure. And thanks to
Um,
everybody. And feel free to reach out if I can answer any questions. But thank you.
Fabulous. Well, look, next up is David Tim. He's a attorney for Burr and Foreman. David works with a lot of bid protests. So he's just started his presentation. He's going to talk about AI in bid protests, and there's some really interesting stories and cautionary tales that he wants to tell. So you're going to be redirected directly over there. So once I stop this presentation, you'll be redirected over, and that's the same for every presentation here today, that when we pause, it will move you on to the next session. So thank you for joining this morning, and I hope you enjoy David's presentation.